What if the reason some people start getting lucky right before they change their lives isn't really luck? What if there were signs appearing in front of you every day, but your own mind was trained to ignore them? Because maybe the universe isn't trying to send you messages through big miracles, voices from the sky, or events that are impossible to deny. Maybe it does it in a much quieter way, and that's exactly why almost no one notices. Through small changes, people who show up at just the right moment, problems that disappear without explanation, doors that start to open after months of seeming completely closed, situations that start to rearrange themselves as if something invisible were moving the pieces behind the scenes. The most unsettling thing is that many people spend their whole lives waiting for a huge sign to confirm that they're on the right path. Meanwhile, they keep ignoring dozens of small signs happening right before their eyes. No one taught us how to interpret that language. We were taught to trust only in what we can measure, touch, and prove. But researchers like the Mexican scientist Jacobo Grinberg dedicated their lives to exploring a much deeper possibility, that the reality we experience may not be something completely separate from our consciousness. Grinberg, who studied for years how the mind, perception, and consciousness participate in the construction of our experience of reality. His research put forward a fascinating idea. Maybe we are not just simple spectators observing a completely external world, but active participants within a reality much more complex than we imagine. And if this were true, then certain changes that appear in our lives might not be mere coincidences. They could be signs that something inside us is changing, and as a result, our external experience begins to reorganize. We're not talking about vague signs that anyone could interpret however they want. We're talking about concrete patterns, about moments when something starts to change in the way life responds to you. It could be a person who completely changes their attitude towards you without you understanding why. A problem that seemed impossible starts to resolve, and inner peace appears after months of anxiety. An opportunity comes from a place you never would have considered. And the strangest thing is that many times these things start to happen just when a person has changed something inside themselves, as if an invisible transformation first occurred in consciousness, and then reality slowly began to reflect it. In this video, you will discover 5 signs from Jacobo Grinberg's perspective on consciousness and the relationship between mind and reality. They can appear when you are entering a new stage of your life, and perhaps the most striking thing is this. It may be that several of these signs are already happening right now. Maybe you called them coincidences, maybe you thought you just got lucky, or maybe you didn't even pay attention to them. But after learning about these 5 signs, you might look at the last few months of your life in a completely different way. Because maybe some events that seemed random were actually following a pattern you hadn't learned to recognize yet. And what if, by the end of this video, you discover that several of these signs are already present in your reality? You might need to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. What if the new stage you're waiting for isn't trying to reach you, but has already started and you just haven't seen it? First sign: the obstacles start to disappear without you having to tear them down by force. One of the first signs that something is changing in your life appears when something that seemed blocked for a long time starts to offer less resistance. Situations that had been stuck for months start to move. Problems that seemed unsolvable find an unexpected solution. Impossible procedures. Finally, things move forward. People who constantly complicated your path change their behavior or simply stop being part of your journey. And here's something curious happens. Many people believe that to achieve something important, they have to fight against everything and everyone, as if life were a constant battle where every step forward has to be conquered by force. But there are moments when something changes, moments when it seems like resistance decreases, and the pieces start to fall into place differently. From Jacobo Grinberg's perspective, when our internal state changes, the way we perceive, interpret, and relate to reality can also change. Our consciousness no longer works the same way. From that same place, we make better decisions, notice opportunities we didn't see before, and relate to our environment in a different way. And what seemed like a giant wall starts to appear as simply a door that we hadn't found yet. Think about those situations where you spent months trying to solve something. You insisted, looked for solutions, and tried different paths. And just when you were exhausted, when you started to accept that maybe it would never happen, everything starts to open up. A document that seemed lost finally gets approved. A conversation that seemed impossible opens the door to a solution. An answer you had been waiting for a long time arrives just when, on the surface, you were about to give up. Someone might say it was luck, but when you look at the whole pattern, you might discover something more interesting. It wasn't a single isolated event. It was a series of small movements happening almost at the same time, as if life were gradually removing what no longer fits with the direction you're moving toward. And here's a detail that many people overlook. You shouldn't just pay attention to what comes into your life. You should also notice what stops happening. The argument you were sure was going to happen, but never does. The conflict that seemed inevitable and disappears before it explodes. The bad news everyone was expecting but never comes. Because sometimes the sign is not a door that opens. Sometimes the sign is a door that is no longer closed. When several problems start to lose strength in a short period of time, when burdens you've carried for years begin to disappear one after another, it can feel like life is making space, as if it were clearing the ground before a new phase. The burdens that have already served their purpose begin to disappear to make room for something new. It doesn't mean that suddenly everything is going to be perfect, that you'll never have problems again, or that life will become a path without obstacles. It means something much more subtle. That which used to drain your energy starts to lose its power over you. What was blocking you starts to move. What seemed impossible to solve begins to work itself out, as if the ground is gradually being cleared, not only around you but also within you. If in recent weeks or months you've noticed that situations that worried you for a long time have started to fall into place, that conflicts that seemed eternal have eased, or that certain difficulties have simply disappeared from your life without a clear explanation, don't ignore it. Maybe it's not just a coincidence. From Jacobo Grinberg's perspective on consciousness and the relationship between the inner world and the reality we experience, these changes can be understood as a sign that something inside you is entering a new configuration. Because when your perception changes, the way you act changes too. And when how you act changes, the reality you interact with changes as well. You might be entering a stage where you no longer have to struggle with every little detail like before. Not because life stops having challenges, but because you're no longer facing them from the same place. Something inside you changed, and reality starts to respond in a different way. Second sign. People start to seek you out and treat you in a different way. The second sign that something positive may be approaching appears in something that often goes unnoticed. The way other people start to react to your presence. And the strangest thing is that it can happen even if you haven't obviously changed anything. You didn't completely change your appearance. You didn't become a different person overnight. You're still you. but something inside you changed. The way you speak, your confidence, the way you look at situations, the energy you bring when you enter a place. And even though people can't exactly explain what's different, they start to notice it. Suddenly, people who barely paid attention to you before start to approach you. Someone who never acknowledged your work starts to appreciate your effort. A person who didn't count on you before starts to ask for your opinion. A supervisor who seemed to ignore you starts to notice your abilities. Friends who used to leave you out of certain conversations start to include you in plans, decisions, or opportunities. Based on Jacobo Grinberg's research on consciousness, we could say that our experience of reality is not completely separate from our internal state. The way we perceive the world influences how we relate to it, and when a deep transformation happens within us, it can also change the way others respond to our presence. It's as if you were transmitting a different version of yourself, not a mask, not a character created to impress, but a presence that is steadier, more aware, more aligned with yourself. And that generates a different response in the people around you. The interesting thing is that many times there isn't an obvious logical explanation. No one wakes up one day saying, "Today I'm going to treat this person better because I feel they've changed." It just happens. You start getting invitations you never used to get. They invite you to be part of projects, and they consider you for meetings or activities you weren't even included in before. Your name starts to come up in conversations where you're not even present. Someone says, "I think this person would be perfect for this." And maybe you're even surprised yourself because you still don't understand why they thought of you. But there's something even more interesting. While new connections start to appear, others begin to disappear. And this doesn't always happen with drama, arguments, or big goodbyes either. Sometimes certain people just stop being a good fit for you. The conversations don't flow like before. Interests change. Distance appears naturally. People who constantly drained your energy start to fall out of your path without you having to fight against them. From Grinberg's perspective, we could interpret this as a change in the way you relate to reality. When your internal state changes, the type of experiences and connections you are drawn to also changes. Not because the universe is removing people as if they were pieces on a board, but because you no longer respond the same way to those you used to accept. When you start to notice that people speak well of you when you're not around. When someone recommends you without you asking them to. When someone defends you or acknowledges your worth without you having to prove anything. Something important is happening. A kind of quiet reputation is building in your favor. An invisible network of trust that can open doors when the right time comes. As if new possibilities are being prepared through the people who cross your path. So if you've been getting more messages, more calls, more invitations lately, or you just feel like the way others look at you has changed, pay attention. Maybe it's not just that they're seeing something different in you. Maybe you're already living from a different version of yourself. And that internal transformation can be the beginning of a stage with more connections and more opportunities. A stronger intuition and an inner certainty that you can't explain. The third sign that something important is approaching doesn't always appear in the outside world. In fact, many times it's the hardest to explain because it happens inside you. It's that strange feeling of knowing that something is changing, even though you don't have any visible proof yet. An intuition that becomes clearer. A deep sense of direction. As if a part of you could sense something that your rational mind still can't understand. And here's the difference. We're not talking about an illusion created by desire. It's not just thinking positively because you want something to happen. It's a deeper internal feeling, a quiet certainty. Like when you know a decision is right, even if you can't quite explain why yet. According to Jacobo Grinberg's research on consciousness, human perception might have abilities that we are still far from fully understanding. Our conscious mind doesn't always process all the available information. There are patterns, internal signals, and ways of perceiving that can appear before something becomes evident on the outside. That's why many people, before major changes in their lives, describe having felt something strange. A feeling of readiness, a quiet certainty, as if a part of them already knew that something was about to begin. From that deeper dimension of consciousness, impressions, dreams, inner sensations, and ideas can arise that seem to come from a place beyond rational thought. And when a new stage begins to take shape, many people describe something curious, a kind of internal warning, as if a part of them senses that something is changing before external events confirm it. It may appear as a thought that comes back again and again. Something good is about to happen, even though apparently nothing has changed yet. It could be the feeling that a difficult stage is coming to an end, even though there are still unresolved problems. It could be an inexplicable need to make a decision, change a routine, distance yourself from something that no longer fits you, or get closer to a certain person. And the most interesting thing happens when you decide to listen to that intuition. Because many times after taking that step that seemed strange or impulsive, you discover that there was an opportunity waiting right behind that decision. From Jacobo Grinberg's perspective on consciousness, our mind would not only be a mechanism that analyzes information from the past, but also a system capable of perceiving patterns that are not yet fully conscious. That is, sometimes a part of you can sense a direction before your logic finds the patterns. But there is something that distinguishes a true intuition from a simple illusion. Deep intuition is usually accompanied by a sense of calm. Not necessarily because all your problems have disappeared. Maybe you still have doubts. Maybe there are still challenges. Maybe the external situation is still not completely resolved. But something inside you changes. The anxiety of controlling every thought. Fear no longer has the same power. The questions still exist, but they don't carry the same weight anymore. It's as if deep inside you've received a signal that you don't need to panic, because something is starting to fall into place. Another way this transformation can appear is through dreams. Jacobo Grinberg studied the relationship in depth between consciousness and perception, and from this perspective, dreams can be understood as an expression of internal processes that our conscious mind still doesn't fully understand. During times of change, many people experience more intense, symbolic, or emotionally impactful dreams. Dreams where they go through dark places and find a way out, where they leave behind heavy burdens, where they discover a new door, where they arrive at a place that brings peace. Beyond the exact symbol, many times what matters is the feeling that remains when you wake up. A feeling of liberation, of renewal. That something inside you is leaving behind an old phase. It can also appear as a sudden burst of creativity, new ideas, desire to start a project, desire to learn something new, desire to organize your life, as if your energy were starting to move toward a new version of yourself. They're not always random impulses. Many times they're signs that your inner world is reorganizing itself. And when that transformation happens inside you, you start making different decisions that bring you closer to different experiences. If lately you felt without knowing exactly why, that something positive is approaching. If a part of you has more trust in the future, if you have the feeling that your story still holds something important for you, even if you can't prove it, don't ignore that feeling. It doesn't mean living in a fantasy or just sitting around waiting for something magical to happen. It means paying attention to that inner guidance that may be pointing you in a direction. Because maybe that certainty isn't naivety. Maybe it's a sign that your consciousness is already perceiving a change that hasn't fully manifested in your reality yet. Fourth sign, opportunities that come from places you never considered before. The fourth sign that something positive may be approaching appears when opportunities start to arise in completely unexpected ways. And here's something interesting happens. Many times, the great opportunities in our lives don't come through the door we were desperately knocking on. They come through a side door we hadn't even seen, because the human mind has a curious tendency. We believe we know exactly how what we want should come to us. We have a plan, a route, a concrete idea of how things should happen. But reality doesn't always follow our map. Sometimes the opportunity that changes your life appears in a casual conversation, through someone you meet by accident, in an invitation you almost turned down, in a message that arrives just when you were thinking of giving up. Suddenly, someone contacts you with an unexpected proposal. They invite you to take part in something that fits you perfectly. Someone shows up willing to help you precisely in the area where you needed it most. And the curious thing is that many times it happens without you having to chase after it for months. From Grinberg's perspective, if our consciousness participates in the way we experience reality, then our internal changes can also open us up to perceiving possibilities that were previously outside our field of attention. It doesn't mean that opportunities appear out of nowhere as if by magic. It means that when our way of being in the world changes, we start to find paths that we were previously unable to see. Sometimes a simple conversation ends up changing your direction. An apparently normal encounter connects you with a key person. A small invitation becomes the beginning of something much bigger. And at certain moments, something even more striking happens. Opportunities start to appear one after another. A door opens. While you're thinking about what to do, another possibility appears. Then a third one. And suddenly, you go from feeling like you had no options to having to choose between several paths. That change from scarcity to abundance can even feel uncomfortable. Because many people are prepared to fight for a single opportunity, but they're not prepared to receive several at the same time. And this is where an unexpected obstacle appears: your own mind. Many people, when something good comes along, immediately look for a reason to reject it. There must be a catch. It's too good to be true. I don't know if I really deserve it. Because sometimes the biggest obstacle isn't the lack of opportunities. It's in our inability to accept that they might come. From Grinberg's perspective, these moments can be seen as a transformation in our relationship with reality. It's not about accepting anything without thinking. Intuition also needs intelligence. It's about letting yourself consider a possibility. Maybe not everything good has to come after an endless battle. Maybe some things come because you're finally ready to receive them. If unexpected offers have appeared lately, if new people have come into your life, opening new paths, if opportunities have arisen that seem to align with something you've been wishing for a long time, pay attention. Maybe it's not just a string of coincidences. Maybe it's a sign that reality is starting to move in a new direction alongside you. Fifth sign, a feeling of lightness and renewed energy. The fifth sign that something important may be approaching. It can't always be seen from the outside, but on the inside it's impossible to ignore. It's that feeling of being able to breathe again after carrying too much weight for a long time. A lightness you hadn't felt in months. A different energy that appears without a clear explanation. As if something inside you had stopped constantly fighting and finally had space to move forward. It's not a fleeting euphoria or a way to fool yourself into thinking all your problems have disappeared. It's something much deeper. It's a change in the way you start relating to your own life, as if a part of you had let go of a burden it had been carrying for too long. And suddenly, even though the outside world remains the same, everything starts to feel a little lighter. You breathe differently. You think differently. You react differently. From Jacobo Grinberg's perspective on consciousness, before a transformation can be fully reflected in our external reality, an internal reorganization happens first. Something changes in the way you perceive, interpret, and respond to what happens around you. Old fears start to lose their strength. The guilt you've been carrying for years begins to loosen its grip. Internal choices that seem normal start to become visible, and little by little, they stop dominating you. And this process isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it shows up as a need to distance yourself a bit from the noise, to spend more time with yourself, to rest. There may even be moments of tiredness, nostalgia, or a strange feeling of sadness without any obvious reason. But it doesn't always mean that something is wrong. Sometimes it's simply a stage of transition. It's like your internal system is getting rid of what no longer belongs to the version of you that's starting to awaken. And after that process, something curious happens. Even though nothing extraordinary seems to have changed on the outside, you notice that something inside you is no longer the same. Situations that used to destroy you emotionally no longer have the same power over you. Problems that once seemed gigantic now start to be seen from a broader perspective. People who used to disturb your peace can no longer throw you off balance so easily. Not because you've become indifferent, but because you've developed more inner space. That space that allows you to choose how to respond instead of reacting automatically. And you start to notice small changes. You smile more. You enjoy simple things that used to go unnoticed. You appreciate everyday moments that you didn't even value before. You start taking better care of your body, to rest better, to eat differently, to organize your space. But the difference is that it no longer comes from a sense of obligation or the pressure to become a better person. It comes from a genuine desire to take care of the person you are becoming. Now you know the 5 signs that can appear when a new phase starts drawing near. Obstacles that lose their strength. People who start to value you in a different way. A clearer intuition. Opportunities that appear from unexpected places. And an inner feeling of lightness and renewal. From Jacobo Grinberg's perspective, we are not just spectators waiting for life to happen. Our consciousness, our decisions, and our way of perceiving are constantly participating in the reality we experience. And when several of these signs appear at the same time, maybe these aren't just coincidences. Maybe you're entering a new stage? But recognizing the signs is only the first step. You also have to respond to them. When a door opens, dare to walk through it. When your intuition points you in a direction, pay attention to it. When something good comes along, don't reject it out of fear or because it's different from what you know. Many people spend years waiting for a change, and when it finally comes, they let it pass by because it doesn't come the way they imagined. Signs don't appear for you to wait motionless. They show up to invite you to participate. Take a moment to look at the last few months of your life and ask yourself, how many of these signs are already present? You might discover that some things that seemed like simple coincidences were actually following a pattern. Because life doesn't always speak through big events. Many times it communicates through small, unexpected encounters and silent changes. And maybe what you're waiting for isn't just beginning to arrive. Maybe it's already started getting closer. And when you can finally see it manifest, you'll understand that all those little details that seemed random were part of a preparation for something much bigger.